Deal with consent items 4.1 to 4.20, the exception of 4.17. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councilor Murray, thank you. And Councilor Tankowski. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. So now that we deal with that one item. Just add it to other business later on in the meeting. Okay. Okay, that brings us down to item number 6 on the agenda because we're moving things around. Oh, yes, sorry. We do have one item under out of 5. Public delegation, 5.1, Jeff French, request for a recount. Jeff, do you want to address council here? There's a little button at the front. If you push it, then the, yep, you got her.
It's on.
Yep.
As members of council are aware, the recent municipal election saw me fall short by just 5 votes, or about half of 1% of all votes cast in the Fullerton ward. An important part of a strong democratic system is ensuring that there are proper checks and balances in place to ensure a fair and transparent election, which is why I stand before you to request a recount to ensure transparency in the system. During the voting period, 2,903 ballots were cast for mayor and 2,863 votes for deputy mayor. This creates a discrepancy of 40 votes, or about 1.4% of all ballots cast. Did 40 voters really take the time to only vote for the mayor and not the deputy mayor? Or was there a glitch in the system? This is, at the very least, curious. This is a potential margin of error of almost 3 times greater than the margin which separated me from Councillor-elect Foster. Computer systems are far from perfect. If they were, why are terms such as bugs and glitches so commonly used when referring to them? In addition, Section 56, subsection 1 of the Municipal Election Act states the clerk shall hold a recount and goes on to list 3 situations. I repeat the use of the word shall. This implies that a recount must be held and is not optional. Therefore, there should be a method of a recount, or the municipality would be within 5 votes of being in violation of the act. For these reasons, I am respectfully requesting a recount of the Fullerton ward results.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. I guess I'll let Dan maybe explain how this works. And then if there's any questions from council, I'll hear them at that time. And then we'll look for your direction. The ultimate decision of a recount rests with council, is my understanding. Dan?
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, council. I'm not going to comment on people's voting patterns because that's not for me to comment on. What I will comment on is that the election was done wholly online. The Municipal Elections Act, Section 56, which Mr. French is referring to, stipulates that the clerk shall hold a recount if there is a tie. There is not a tie in this case. The clerk's procedures and municipal policy also stipulate there shall be a recount in the event of a tie. Again, there is not a tie in this case. Traditionally, with paper ballots, recounts were often granted with a percentage margin of difference. That was to account for human error. Again, there were no paper ballots cast. It was wholly digital and online. Through our certification process, we do get 2 reports from the election software. I'm not here to decide for council what to do, but the result will be the same. And there is a process to go through as per the act if we have to hold a recount. So there is some time involved and some cost involved, albeit they're all minor, but just giving council the full picture.
Okay, any questions from members of council how this works? Councillor Duck?
My question is more so for Dan. Dan, have there any other instances like this in other municipalities where anyone's kind of alleged that there may be a computer mishap like that and they've taken action, or is this kind of the first that you've been made aware of?
I guess two issues I'd point out here is that when Mr. French came forward to us requesting a delegation, he requested a delegation solely based on a recount because of the number of votes difference being five votes. So there was another recount held. The results were the same and the difference was of one vote. Today, what Mr. French has done is put in question the accuracy of the software. And that was not the purpose of his delegation, or at least as how he described it to us. It was to request a recount.
Yes, and the incident that Dan refers to, I believe, is in Huron County, where there was one vote difference, and the recount was held, and the end result was the same. And there may be even others that we haven't heard of. Any other questions? Okay, it's council's decision if you wish to go ahead with a recount. Dan said there's there's a bit of time involved. The cost is basically minimum to do it. So it's not that it's a burden to the municipality to have a recount. But I guess the point that Dan was trying to get across, it's not like counting paper ballots where there can be mistakes made, whether the X was within the circle or outside the circle, or sometimes there's miscounts, and that was kind of a common occurrence. It was natural if you were fairly close, you automatically requested a recount. But at this time, I would take a motion, what your wishes would be. And don't everybody jump at once. Anna Marie, thank you.
To help put Mr. French's mind at ease, I would suggest that we ask for a recount. That would be my motion.
Okay, I take that as being the motion that you wish to make as the mover. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Rose. Okay, any further questions? Time-wise, Dan, what are we looking at?
We need to do registered mail now to everyone involved in the election. So we need to leave adequate time for that. I think we have 15 days ultimately to hold it.
Okay, all right.
We'll have to pick a date and go from there.
Yeah, okay, all right. So I guess we're ready for the question. All those in favor of it? Oh, sorry.
So you have to send a registered letter to each voter in, registered mail, you said. Who do you?
To the candidates.
So it would be just the one. It would be just the ones in the Fullerton ward.
If we're requesting a Fullerton ward.
All right. Oh, question, Councillor Duck?
And there's no other way of recounting it other than basically establishing that these numbers came in on a computer. They were sent to you. Second report was verified. There's no additional way that they're actually going to go back and count their base. Am I correct in saying that they're just going to go back and basically verify that what they've already done is correct, or they go back and count all those ballot standard?
Yeah, the way the software works is we're just going to request a report again, and the report will come to us via email, and that will have the numbers. Yeah.
Okay, we ready for the question? All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is carried. So there will be a recount. And I know, Jeff, as you know, as I've mentioned, it sucks, it really does. And I know where you're coming from to lose by 5 votes. It could just have easily have been 1 vote too. So, and I just want to say there's no truth to the fact, even though I did say it, you don't vote early and vote often. That's not the difference in the mayor's going to the deputy mayor's numbers. So it's just, some people just vote for one person. Some maybe voted for the mayor, some maybe just voted even for the deputy mayor. Some maybe just voted for councillors in the Fullerton ward. So anyways, we will do the recount and we'll go from there. Thanks for your presentation. All right, moving on then down to item number 6 is reports, and it's the planning department. And Susanna is going to do this. The first one is with regards to an application to lift a holding zone. So Susanna, if you're ready, I'll let you come up and have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor Mackenzie and council. This is an application to lift a holding zone. It was a holding zone on a property that is on the corner of Nelson Street and Francis Street. Council earlier considered a plan of subdivision for this property. And the plan of subdivision has now been approved. So the applicant is coming back to request that the holding zone be lifted in order to proceed to develop the land for 11 single detached residences. We go to the next slide. Oh, my clicker works, so thanks. Is that you or me? That's me. It was you. Okay, so this is the location of the property. Oh, that was me, I turned it off. There we go. That's the location of the property. It's 1.55 acres. And again, it fronts the unopened Nelson Street and Frank Street at the south end of Mitchell. This is a picture of the property standing on Frank Street and looking north. And this is an aerial photo on the right and the lot fabric on the left of the proposed 11 lots. And here is that property outlined in red is the subject lands. It has an R4 special zone. And then it also has a holding zone on the property. So the wording and the language is for the zone is included in the planning report. And the wording is like slightly unconventional in that it's a special zone for an R4 zone to permit single detached residences, where the usual zone to permit single detached residences would be an R2 zone. The building department has reviewed the zoning and has confirmed that they're able to issue permits for single detached dwellings. So the planning department is recommending that the council approve the request to lift the holding zone, and that subsequently this property be earmarked for a housekeeping amendment to change the zoning on the property to R2. Those are my comments. I'm available for questions.
Okay, thanks, Susanna. Any questions for Susanna on that item? No questions. I do have a motion here then, or a recommendation. Recommendation is the West Perth Council receive the report file 16-2022 application to lift holding zone affecting lands described as registered plan 339 Park Lot 46, reference plan 44R 5628, Part 1 and 4, corner of Nelson and Frank Streets, and that council approved the request to lift the H10 holding provision affecting the lands described as registered plan 339, Park Lot 46, reference plan 44R 5628, Part 1 and 4, Mitchell Ward, Municipality of West Perth. Do we have a mover and seconder for that motion? Councillor Matheson and seconded by Councillor Rose. Any questions? Okay, all those ready? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on then. The next is Susanna's going to do this one. This is the report with regards to the Part Lot 13, Concession 1 of the Hibbert Ward. We're going to, I'm just going to lay out for people in attendance. Susanna's going to do her report, And then we have three people that have asked to speak to this zoning bylaw, and we will let them speak. But because this is not a public meeting, we'll only let the three people that have asked to speak. Had somebody else had asked if they wish to speak, we probably would have added them. But we'll let the three people that have asked speak to it. And then we will have Bartels, I believe, if they want to speak, and questions from council. So Susanna, the floor is yours again.
Thank you very much. This is a zoning bylaw amendment, as the mayor has said, for the Bartels property, which is east of Dublin. Can we go to the next slide? It's the location of the subject property. It's about 415 meters west of Dublin. And the next slide. And this is an air photo showing the subject property, which is 11.2 hectares, about 27 acres. So I'm guessing that everybody in the room is quite familiar with this property. The public meeting was held on October 17th, and you received a planning report at that time. We had a good review of the planning issues, and the planning department is coming back with a report that addresses the questions that were raised at the October 17th public meeting. And I'm guessing that most of the people in the room are very interested in this property and are here in order to speak to the file as well. So the property is designated agricultural in the Perth County official plan and is currently zoned agricultural in the West Perth zoning bylaw. And the application is to change the zoning on the property to a ACM zone. That's a special agricultural, commercial, industrial zone. And the permitted uses are on the slide now. A biosolids storage facility, farm products processing business, a feed and or fertilizer blending operation, and accessory structures. The rezoning also proposes to include a definition for a biosolids storage facility being a site to be used for the receipt, temporary storage, processing, and transfer of liquid organic waste. So at the October 17th public meeting, if we go to the next slide, please. The planning report reviewed section 5510 in the Perth County official plan. And those are the policies related to farm-related commercial and industrial uses. So I won't review all of those policies again. And I do want to emphasize that the central planning considerations for this file are 5510 sub H and 5510 sub L, which are regarding environmental protection and compatibility with neighboring land uses. I think that council can tell by both the comments at the October 17th public meeting and the number of people that are here today, that there is that how concerned people are regarding their quality of life, protection of air and water quality. The considerations with regards to groundwater protection, we go to the next slide. Groundwater protect, and just click a few more times. Groundwater protection, environmental protection, and concerns with regards to impact on neighboring property owners have been thoughtfully considered by the municipality of West Perth. There is a separate piece of legislation which I spoke to at the October 17th public meeting, the Environmental Protection Act, and the applicant has applied for an ECA permit through the Environmental Protection Act. When the municipality was apprised of this application, they engaged an engineer at BM Ross, Steve Burns, in order to review the rezoning application and the ECA permit. And Mr. Burns's work was substantial. He reviewed the application for the ECA permit. He met with the senior waste review engineer at the Ministry of Environment in January of 2020 to provide comments on behalf of the municipality of West Perth. And the comments that he offered were considered by the ministry staff and incorporated into the application. And he also recommended to the municipality, to the planning department, that the application not be considered or supported until the ECA permit was issued. He also reviewed the ECA permit after it was issued, and he attended the October 17th meeting in order to answer questions from council about the permit. And Steve Burns has no outstanding concerns regarding the ECA permit. So from the planning department's perspective and the review of those two key planning issues, there has been thoughtful consideration with regards to groundwater protection, environmental concerns, and compatibility with neighboring property owners. And that was done through the ECA permit. If we go to the next slide, the next piece that I'd like to move to is the consideration with regards to an agriculturally related use. The applicant's planner has provided a planning justification report stating that, in his opinion, the proposal is an agricultural related use. The definition for an agricultural related use is on this slide now, and I'll just read it too, so that we're clear with regards to what this means. An agricultural related use means those farm related commercial and farm related industrial uses that are directly related to farm operations in the area, support agriculture, benefit from being in close proximity to farm operations, and provide direct products and or services to farm operations as a primary activity. So the applicant's planner has offered an opinion that the proposed use is an agriculturally related use. And I offered an opinion at the October 17th meeting that I agreed with this opinion. So if we continue through the slides, the OMAFRA guidelines on permitted use in Ontario's prime agricultural areas offer a number of considerations for evaluating whether or not a use can be considered an agriculturally related use. And so the segue there is to the section 5510 in the Perth County official plan. So if it is an agricultural related use, then it's considered by section 5510 in the official plan, which is the policy I just referred to. So the first consideration, is it related to, is it a farm related commercial and farm related industrial use is the first question. The OMAFRA guidelines include fertilizer storage and distribution facility, which add value to agricultural commodities in the area. And while it's not, the use is not proposing fertilizer, it is storing a soil amendment. And that could be considered related to, could be considered a farm related commercial or industrial use. The second question is with regards to compatibility and hindering neighboring agricultural uses. You go to the next slide. The text on the slide now addresses the considerations here. So minimum distance separation, neighboring gardens will not be impacted. The environmental, the ECA permit, as I mentioned, will address issues with regards to proximity to neighboring uses, or does do that. And then finally, the Nutrient Management Act regulates the land application of NASM material through a NASM plan that would be prepared by the applicant and approved by OMAFRA. The next consideration, if we just go to the next slide, is that it's directly related to farm operations in the area. And from the planning department's perspective, it is considered directly related to farm operations in the area as the NASM material will be land applied as fertilizer. The next question in the OMAFRA guidelines, go to the next slide, is that it supports agriculture, and the same response, that the NASM material will be land applied to agricultural land in order to contribute to soil productivity. And this is considered supportive of agriculture. And then the final question is provides direct products and or services to farm operations as a primary activity. At this point, the OMAFRA guidelines, if we go to the next slide, please. Specifically state that now some storage facilities are not agriculture related uses. And in discussion with the applicant, the planning department is of the opinion that as the biosolids, as the Bartil facility will store biosolid waste as that would be land applied as an agricultural nutrient, that it's considered as a product that would be provided to farm operations. We go to the next slide. So now what I'd like to do is go to the questions that were raised at the October 17th public meeting. So, and these are reviewed in the planning report as well. The applicant's planner has provided a memo which is included in the council package, which speaks to these questions as well. So the maximum number of trucks would be 18 to 20 trucks a day delivering material to the site. And between April 1st and November 30th, between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m., Monday to Saturday, between 28 to 56 trucks per day trucking material out. The next slide, how is the integrity of the berm been determined and what inspections have been done? From our perspective, this is fully in the jurisdiction of the Ministry of the Environment. The municipality's engineer has put his mind to this question, and the response that the planning department is comfortable with is that the ECA permit is responsible for the integrity of the berm. The next slide. With the existence of the facility, Dublin's ability to expand to the east was another question raised at the October 17th meeting. And the answer to this question is that there is a reciprocal setback required for, or an additional guideline, let's say, that would be required at the time that Dublin was proposed to expand within 500 meters of the site, that there would be requirements by the developer to consider the impact of the biosolids storage facility on any development in that area. So the next slide. Would the existence of the facility restrict development of houses on neighboring farms? If neighboring farms are zoned agricultural, it would be possible to go ahead and get a building permit. If no planning application is required, there would be no requirement for a study through the D4 study. If a planning application were required, that would trigger a D4 consideration of the impact of the biosolids storage facility on development in proximity to the site. And again, that would be a 500-meter buffer. And then the final question, I think, or maybe there's two more. The existence of the facility generate MDS requirements for barns on neighboring farms. There would be no MDS impact. And if there is no planning application required, then a building permit could be issued. If a planning application is required and the development is within 500 meters of the site, a D4 study would be required. And the final question is with regards to how are dug wells being monitored for safety? And the response to this question is that's in the jurisdiction of the ECA permit. I'm not sure if there's another slide. Yeah, that's the end of the slides. Okay. So that concludes the planning department's review and comments. And council will note in the planning application that the department is recommending that the application for rezoning be approved. Since I have prepared this report, I applaud the neighbors in Dublin for their substantive work and research on similar biosolid storage facilities. And I've been looking at the OMB or the OLT decision with regards to the biosolids storage facility in Lincoln outside of Beamsville. And I can see that I've done a cursory look at this decision, and I can see that the decision of the tribunal was relevant to the guideline that I had on the screen with regards to whether or not a biosolids storage facility can reasonably be considered a agriculturally related use. And at this point, I think that the consideration with regards to the current zone is relevant for council's deliberation and also for the consideration of the applicant. The question is whether or not, from our review, the critical questions for this file are whether or not the ECA permit is adequate protection for the protection of the groundwater and the concerns with regards to compatibility. And that legislation is the provincial tool that the municipality is relying on through the review of your engineer in order to ensure that the site will be properly managed. However, there is an outstanding question as to whether or not the correct planning application is being considered. As the OMB or the OLT decision from the Beamsville site has identified. So it may be preferable at this point to defer the application and allow the applicant to submit an application pursuant to section 2631 of the PPS, which would allow the consideration of a non-agricultural use in an agricultural area. Those are all my comments.
Okay, thank you, Susanna. So I think what we'll do is, if you just want to wait there for a second, Susan, and I'll ask if there's any questions from council at this time. Councillor Duck?
I guess my first thought would be that if we deferred it so they could potentially change it to a non-agricultural use, that it's probably gonna have a lot more upset people in here, but that's neither here nor there. My first question is about the evacuation risk plan that you talked about for new development within 500 meters. Being as a Dublin's already 415 meters away, is there an evacuation risk plan in effect already? Is that something that the residents have had access to?
Thank you for the question. I'll just want to look at the language that you're referring to. So there is a provincial guideline which is referred to as D4. This is the guideline that is relevant for development in proximity to the guideline is referred to as land use on or near landfills and dumps. So if there was development in proximity to the biosolids storage facility, it would need to do a planning study. So it's not an evacuation plan. It's an evaluation of the presence and impact of any adverse effects or risks to health and safety. So that would mean that if there was a plan of subdivision, for example, that was within 500 meters of the proposed site, that the applicant would need to do a study to consider if there was any impact on that development because of the proximity to the biosolids storage facility. So in my mind, it's the reciprocal requirement that the biosolids storage facility had to do in order to acquire the ECA permit. If you think about it in that way.
So just maybe so I'm clear. So then by going ahead and getting this permit, they would have already had to address that for the residents that are already in there. What you're saying is basically would be within 500 meters of property going forward, that would be a new kind of set of guidelines. This has already been taken care of in terms of the ECA's permit size.
The ECA permit itself was obligated to consider all of that. And what I'm saying is that the municipality's engineer has reviewed that for council and come to the conclusion that that review is adequate. So the impacts of the site have been reviewed. And that any new development within 500 meters, if there was a planning application required, would have to do studies to demonstrate that there were no concerns.
Councillor Tam.
How do they get the ECA permit without the zoning in place?
Thank you very much. This is a very important question. So they are separate legislative processes. One unfolds through the Environmental Protection Act, the other unfolds through the Planning Act. It would have been possible for council to consider the rezoning in advance of the ECA permit. However, at the recommendation of your engineer, BM Ross, we waited for the ECA permit until we considered the application complete, and then we proceeded with rezoning. And that's because we wanted to ensure that the environmental considerations had been adequately addressed through the companion legislation, through the Environmental Protection Act, in order to ensure that the environmental issues had been adequately addressed.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions at this time? I'll give you an opportunity, certainly towards the end after everybody has spoke. If you have any further questions, and you can refer back to something that Susanna said if you wish. Okay, thank you very much, Suzanne. Okay, we do have a delegation. I'm going to take them in the order they're on the sheet here. So Mark Cox must have been the first one in. Or if you want to, there's 3 people have been asked to speak. It doesn't matter to me which order you go. Okay, that's fine with me. Is she? Okay, all right.
I respectfully request that a document I submitted later or earlier today, it was suggested. Oh,
It's on. You just have to speak into it, Colin.
I submitted a rebuttal document earlier in the day, and it was suggested that it could be put up on the screen. Ah, there it is. Thank you. In reviewing the documentation submitted by Perth County Planning Department in the package, and Ms. Reed spoke to some of that. I reviewed specific elements of the provincial policy statements as written by the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, and specifically researched the guidelines on permitted uses in Ontario's prime agricultural areas. Susanna referenced some of these elements as well. I'd like to point out that it continues to be expressed that Bartel's intended plan for the lagoon meets the threshold for agricultural related use. And it has been said that it is an opinion and that it can be considered so. On page 2 of the document that I submitted, I would like to point out to attendees and to the council that there are specific guidelines by OMAFRA that speak to permitted uses. But our take on that, as written here, is very concrete. And section 2.21 of those guidelines specifically state uses that process and or store predominantly non-agricultural source materials. And they give examples specifically identifying sewage biosolids are not agriculture related uses, even if the products of such facilities are spread on the farmland. And this has been a strong point of argument for the applicant and for the planning committee. Section 2.23 again supports that, saying sewage biosolids storage and composting facilities for non-agricultural materials do not meet PPS definitions outlined in that policy. So I submit that we offered that the above statement by the Ministry of the Agriculture puts to rest any debate about the definition surrounding what is acceptable agricultural use and provides clear guidance for the Council of West Perth in denying the request for any zone bylaw change that would permit storage of biosolid waste at the Dublin Lagoon. I'd also like to acknowledge, as Council has, that we've had outstanding support from our citizens. We had 173 residents signatures submitted, and we're grateful for the multiple people that have reached out in support of our efforts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Colleen. So Mark, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm just wondering, is it possible to bring up the actual PDF that she's referencing? The PDF that she's referencing from the OMFRA, the guidelines? No. Oh, she sent the link with it, so it's fine. I can speak to it. It's fine. I'd like to start by thanking everyone for having us here tonight. It's obviously very concerning. You can see by the amount of people that are here tonight. As Colleen has said, the OMFRA guidelines on permitted uses in Ontario's prime agricultural areas, which Sassoon Reed and Bartels have both cited in their applications and reports, states in 2.23 examples of uses that would typically not be agricultural related uses, which is like the agriculture related uses encompasses everything that West Perth currently zones agricultural, commercial, industrial. So that's what they mean by agricultural related. Biosolids storage does not meet the provincial policy statement, PPS, which was obviously already referenced earlier tonight, definitions or criteria. So the OMFRA, who they keep citing over and over again in these reports, says specifically that biosolid storage does not meet the provincial policy statement. If you step back in the policy, 2.2.1.5 states uses that process and or store predominantly non-agricultural source materials, exactly what's being stored there, or if it's proposed to be stored there, are not agricultural related uses, even if the products of such facilities are spread on farmland. The primary function of such facilities is to manage non-agricultural waste streams. Rather than produce a product for application to farmland, facilities that process and or store agricultural source materials for agricultural operations in the area as their primary activity may fit the definition of agricultural related use. Meaning that if you are a farm and you have source material, agricultural source material, you may fit the guideline. If you are a non-source agricultural material, you do not fit the guideline. It's black and white. It's as plain as can be. This information was actually just found last night by us. We didn't know of this report until last night. We found it. Thank God we did, because it made the rest of my report click. All of a sudden, all these facilities that I'm finding across the province, who are all zoned industrial, heavy industrial, waste disposal management industrial, whatever they're zoned, it's not agricultural.
So Mark,
Yes.
just for your information, I think we have the item on the screen now
perfect.
that you talked about. So if that helps you out at all.
There's the 2.23. So this is the guideline that is designed for municipalities to understand the PPS and how it applies to agricultural lands. This is the guideline that should be used to make this decision. And it says specifically that these facilities are not agricultural and are not permitted, and that amendments to zoning would go against provincial policy. So when this information was found last night, everything clicked. This explains why all these facilities are zoned, and I will quote here: heavy industrial, general industrial, and waste disposal industrial. Those are the only zonings I found every lagoon I could find in Ontario, and I spent weeks looking for lagoons. I found companies I've never heard of before, because why would I? And they all use these lagoons And not a single one of them is zoned anything agricultural adjacent. I hope council has had time to review the package that I presented. We can quickly go through it if council would please.
If you want to highlight it, that's perfectly fine. I think
Sure.
the whole idea is to get as much
Sure.
information out as we can.
The start of, I don't know if you need to bring it up or not, the biosolid zoning. No. It should be after that, I believe. Keep going. Here we go. This is the one. So can we go to page 3? Oh, that's the one. Back up. There we are. So Niagara Falls Gardner Road Biosolids Facility. This is the facility directly referenced within Bartel's planning justification report in section 3.5 mitigation measures. This facility is owned by Niagara Region. It is run by Thomas Nutrition Solutions. It is zoned heavy industrial. And if you zoom down, you can see the actual lagoons surrounded by agricultural land, yet zoned heavy industrial. Next would be Dundalk Listec International. Brand new state-of-the-art facility, processing plant near the road. I believe this is the right. I'm talking to the right one. Facility in Dundalk called the facility, including the lagoons, are zoned M1 or MI for general industrial. Sarnia would be the next facility. We suck, or Wessex, but I'm going to go with we suck. They're the facility that I'm sure everyone has read about, heard about, or if you went to Sarnia, probably smelt. I'm just going to do a couple quotes in some news articles I read. They says the smell has been described as gaggingly bad. And it's like literally someone put a porta-john dumped inside your home. The mayor himself said it was nauseating. Now, I'm not saying that Bartels would run a facility to this extent where I feel like there's a porta-john in my house, but it has happened in the past, as we can see from numerous news reports from Sarnia. Oh, by the way, they were zoned, I believe, heavy industrial. Yeah, heavy industrial for that one. New Lowell, region of Huronia Environmental Services. I found a report from 2008, and they had over 100 different municipalities that they were collecting. Their lagoons are zoned waste disposal industrial, because that's exactly what this is. They take the waste from municipalities to these lagoons and store it there because they get paid a lot of money to do it. Which brings me to Ottawa, who has their own facilities, as a big municipality or region would, but they also have their own trucks and equipment to spread biosolids to farms. And they do this for free. They spread this material for free, which says to me that the agricultural basis of their business is very minimal. They make their money by removing the biosolids. They store it where nobody wants it and then spread it for free. I actually talked to a farmer just west of Shakespeare recently, and he told me that Stratford was paying farmers in the area to spread and take the waste from them. Which again speaks to, this is not an agricultural business that they're running. They can put all the tractors and whatever they want on their websites. This is a waste removal company. Don't be fooled. Which brings us to Beamsville, my pride and joy, Beamsville. I'm just glad that it came up from Susanna. That's amazing that she looked into this. They voted no. Came to their municipality. They reviewed it and they voted no. There's no reason to vote yes. The mayor was quoted as saying hallelujah when they got voted down and denied by the province. That's the end of my report. The community of Dublin is currently thriving. It's doing great. There's new businesses opening, homes are selling, people are putting additions on their homes. Things are happening in the village. I went on a walk yesterday with my family. We went to the Living Loft, just at the end of my street now, brand new business. They had an open house because of the Christmas sale. Parking lot was full of people. Walked down Main Street, Gettler's is full of people, Mercantile's full of people, the street's lined with cars. I walk around the corner, there's the Maloney's house, and Josh Bowden's putting an addition on it. Looks great, things are happening in the community. I walk further around the road, there's a new family on a vacant lot putting stakes in the ground, planning out their new home. You can't honestly tell me that if there's a facility storing biosolids 500, 800 meters from their home, that these things are going to be happening. It's going to kill Dublin. There's a section of field directly beside my house, to the east, currently zoned future development. If this goes forward and all those setbacks are met and the MDS 1 and 2 and whatever else they're quoting is going to get approved, you can't tell me that anyone's going to build a house there. Looking out at some lagoons, smelling whatever they're going to be putting in it, you might as well just rezone that property too, because it will not be future development. It'll just be a waste of land. This isn't what I do for a living. Obviously, I don't write reports. I don't do research. I don't look into biosolid facilities for a living. I'm a fireman. I have been for 15 years. Did 3 years in the Air Force as a firefighter. I'm full-time for going on 12 years now with my current department. I've been to every call you can imagine. And if I had ever been given the opportunity to stop any of those things that I've gone to calls for from happening, I would have. This is your opportunity. This is your opportunity to stop this from happening to Dublin, because that's what's happening. This is going to happen to Dublin. It's not just a biosolid facility being put out in the bush. This is happening to Dublin. And I really sincerely hope that you take the information that Colleen has provided you, that I have provided you, the guidelines set out by the province that shows that this zoning amendment is wrong and goes against provincial policy. I hope you take all of this information and vote no tonight on the zoning amendment. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate, certainly appreciate the time and effort you put in to doing your research, and it shows. Bruce. Okay, very good. And that's why I let Mark go a little longer. Okay, are there any questions from council this far on anything that has been said? No? Okay. Dave Barrett, I believe, is in the crowd. I saw him earlier. I don't know where he's sitting right now. Do you wish to say anything at this time?
Good evening, Mayor McKenzie and members of council. My name is Ron Nienhuis, Director of Operations for Bartels Group. And then on behalf of Bartels Environmental, I'd like to thank you once again for the opportunity to address you once again. In April 2019, Bartels was made aware of the opportunity to purchase the Dublin Lagoon property owned by Safina Foods. Prior to the purchase of this property, our due diligence included the following. Bartels engaged EXP Services, a respected engineering and consulting firm, to complete a phase 1 environmental site assessment, who submitted a report to us on October 11th, 2019. The summary from this report notes the following. Based on the phase 1 ESA findings, including site observations, information provided by the site representative, the review of the environmental databases, available historical information, and information provided by the Technical Standards and Safety Authority and information from the MECP, no environmental concerns have been identified for the site. As such, no further investigation is warranted at this time. We also inquired if in the past there had been any MECP corrective actions issued against the property. On September 30th, 2019, a request for information was submitted to the MECP Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Office for information in their files regarding the site that pertain to any environmental concerns, orders, and spills. No environmental issues were identified. And then thirdly, Bartels had a meeting on July 8th, 2019 with Adam Betterich, the West Perth planner at that time, and Bob McLean to review our interest in the property, to disclose our intentions for it, and to inquire on the current agricultural zoning on the property. The written response on July 19th, 2019 from the planner was as follows, and I quote, "The lands are currently zoned agriculture on key map number 22 of the municipality's zoning bylaw number 100-1998. Although the establishment and use of the land for lagoons isn't permitted within the A zone, it is in the opinion of municipal staff that the lagoons are a legal non-conforming use, given that the existing lagoons were established lawfully prior to the passing of the zoning bylaw in 1998. The use of the lagoons for storage of NASM can continue in this status," end quote. And then the response continued, and I quote, "The municipality accepts and acknowledges that it will be the responsibility of the proponent to address the following items." There's 4 items. Approval from OMAFRA may be needed for the handling and storage of non-agricultural source materials. This was addressed in the ECA, which was approved on July 1st, 2022. Secondly, there is currently an ECA for the lagoons, and that the proponent will need to amend such ECA. Again, the amended ECA was approved July 1st, 2022. Thirdly, any agreements or easements on a title that pertain to the former Safina processing site in Dublin on separate lands will need to be addressed. This was completed within the purchasing agreement. And fourthly, a pipe extending from the former Safina processing site noted above to the lagoons will be physically cut off or removed. This was completed on October 30th, 2020, and the MECP was notified. With the due diligence completed, along with a positive zoning confirmation from the municipal planner, Bartels proceeded to purchase the property, and the sale closed on January 10th, 2020. In September 2021, as the amended ECA was being prepared, Bartels received notice from the municipality West Perth that the earlier decision on zoning was being retracted, and Bartels needed to apply for a zoning bylaw amendment. While Bartels did not agree with this judgment, a pre-consultation meeting with municipal staff was held on October 26, 2021, from which came the recommendation from municipal staff that Bartels submit an application for an ACM special zoning amendment. Bartels did not choose the ACM zone, but did so on the recommendation of staff. This application was submitted on December 6, 2021. Through the course of the ECA application and now this zoning bylaw amendment, Bartels has provided all the information and documents requested. We have been open with the adjoining properties owners meeting with them on April 24th, 2020, to introduce ourselves and to explain our intentions with the property. Longstanding arrangements with farmers in the area continued, including permission to plant crops in the back of the property with no financial gain to Bartels and the cutting of the hay on the front portion. Since our purchase of the property, we have sought to have a positive impact in the community and will continue to do so moving forward. Many continue to comment on the potential environmental impact of the site. Council is reminded that the recently approved ECA is in place to provide direction and restrictions on what is to be brought to the site and how the site is to be operated. At the public meeting on October 17th, Steve Burns from BM Ross noted, and I quote, "The ECA provides protection to the neighbors, provides protection to the municipality, and provides protection to the environment. Bartels will work within the strict parameters and in compliance of the ECA to have a positive impact on all three." Mr. Burns then continued, and I quote, "Of all the responsibility, all of the reporting is really between Bartels and the Ministry of the Environment. West Perth has no direct responsibility to what goes on there. The province will ensure that things are done properly," end quote. Bartels is coming before the municipality of West Perth not to debate the merits and operation of the lagoon site. Those are and will continue to be addressed within ECA, and we intend to operate according to it for our benefit and for the benefit of the community. We are here seeking a bylaw amendment of which all requirements and items have been addressed to the point where we have a recommendation from municipal staff now to approve the zoning bylaw amendment. Council members, we understand the difficult decision before you. Difficult because emotion is in play. But we urge you to make your decision making relying on the facts. The fact that there have not been any reported issues from the site in the past. The fact that the site has been operational for many years and the intended use of this site does not change. The fact that the MECP, responsible for and experts in reviewing application for sites like these, have given their approval and granted an ECA. The fact that any adverse effect complaints will be addressed through the MECP in accordance with the ECA. The fact that as part of the ECA application process, there was a 45-day public comment period from July 29th to September 12th, 2021, posted on the Environmental Registry of Ontario with 0 comments submitted. And the fact that council now has before it a staff recommendation from staff who are experts in the planning and zoning requirements to approve this request, and the fact that the specific ACM zone was recommended to Bartels by municipal staff. We thank you once again for the opportunity to address you. We look forward to a decision based on the known facts for the acknowledgement of jurisdiction and for the cooperation and trust within provincial and municipal governance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's not my intent here to throw anybody under the bus, but did we not comment during that opportunity? I thought we did, yeah, so go ahead.
Yeah, perhaps the clerk, do you want to take that one, Dan?
As Ron spoke to, his timeline of events are accurate from listening here. When staff was approached for the ECA, the municipality provided comments, as mentioned, that we retracted the previous opinion of staff and that there was a zoning amendment needed.
Okay, questions from council? Councilor Duck.
I guess my first question would be, Mr. Ninehouse said that there was no issues reported. I can't remember the gentleman's name at the public meeting. Actually, had stated at the time currently there was some seepage leaking over from one of the berms onto his property. Was that addressed at all? Or was there any sort of formal notice put into Bartels? And was that addressed or confirmed?
I'm not sure you're addressing that to Bartels. Okay. Whoops, sorry. Ron, do you wish to comment?
Yeah, so my reference was to any reported through the MECP. So when we sent in the request for information from them, they came back with 0 issues based on that site.
You had also said that the ACM zone recommendation was by municipal staff. If it were up to you, was there something that you would maybe have chosen differently? You just kind of elaborated to that was what you settled on because they had said that, but just curious on your thoughts on that.
Yeah, we're not experts on the zoning and with requirements to the municipality. So in our pre-consultation meeting that we had with the municipal planners, that was their recommendation based on their understanding of what we wish to do with the site. So that's the process that we followed.
I guess then following up, when you started dealing with the IBI group and Mr. Baird, I believe is the registered planner, did he have any maybe other suggestion that would have been beneficial to Bartels at the time that you looked at, or was this the only zoning after you consulted with proper advice?
Good evening. Or good evening, Mayor and council members. Yes, I am a professional planner and put together the planning report recommending that this is agriculturally related use. This is also recognizing that the purpose of the policies in the provincial plan are to protect prime agricultural land and prevent uses that are incompatible with normal farm operations from locating within prime agricultural areas. This is an existing lagoon site. We're not proposing to dig up prime agricultural land and place lagoons there. This is an appropriate location for it, and it also has benefits to the agriculture community as it is applied to fields.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chantowski.
Thank you, your worship. Mr. Nineheist, could you please review the timeline? You were going through a timeline sequence of events and you said July 8th, 2019, there was a meeting with Bartels and Minister West Perth staff, in particular, the planner, Mr. Bettridge, and our building inspector, Mr. McLean. Could you kind of go through that segment of the timeline, because there was subsequent meetings and correspondence after July 8th, 2019?
Sure. So July 8th, 2019 is the meeting date with Adam Betterich and Bob McLean. And then we received our response on July 19th, 2019 from them, which then stated what I read.
So that July 19th, 2019, there was the letter stated that the property was quote unquote legal non-conforming.
Correct.
Okay, and then just help me go a little bit further down that trail. There was subsequent correspondence or communication afterwards with West Perth staff. Just trying to get a.
Yeah, sure. So then in September 2021 is when the ECA was being amended, is when we first had the notice from West Perth stating that they were retracting their decision and that we had to reapply.
Reapply for the zoning.
For a zoning bylaw
portion.
amendment.
Okay,
And then we had our pre-consultation meeting on October 26, 2021
pre-consultation with West Perth
with West Perth.
as insofar as the zoning
Correct.
application is
Yeah.
concerned. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Councillor Duck again?
I've got one again from Mr. Ninehouse. Now, you said there was a phase 1 report done, and understandably it had passed to their satisfaction. How many reports for different phases are there that they can go to if need be? And kind of what is the length that each one goes to? Like saying that they were satisfied after one, I understand that, and I can appreciate what you're saying, but I'm just curious as to what they were checking if they weren't one of those further ones.
Sure. Well, that was an internal environmental assessment that we did also for our lenders. So that's as far as we went. That's all our lenders were asking us for. So
Okay, anyone else? Counselor Harold?
Can you tell me, was a copy of the April 2022 site plan submitted to the MTO? And did the MTO ever receive a grading and drainage plan for review and approval?
Yes, MTO was given the grading and drainage plan and the site plan. The site plan was fairly straightforward, again, given this is an existing lagoon site. So for MTO's benefit, we described the differences to the site that would result from the application, and it was simply a gate well set back from the highway and a gravel turnaround area next to the lagoons to allow for Bartels trucks to operate within the site.
Within our package here, there's a letter from the Ministry of Transportation Corridor Management. It's dated received November 1st, 2022. Is that just when we received this letter, or it's in that the report starts with the county? The
I'm just
very
looking
first
for it.
page is the office of the CAO Department Planning Division, Perth County.
Which page of the package, Councillor Harold? Bottom right, 230, page.
Don't know what page it is.
Yeah, I think if you keep scrolling down, it comes next.
Yeah, right there.
That's the email, yeah.
So the very first thing under good afternoon says, thank you for following up with the MTO. If a copy of the April 2022 site plan could be submitted, it would be appreciated. It may also have impact on the comments provided below.
Yes, so following that correspondence,
Yeah.
we had an exchange with MTO and provided the grading and drainage plan were circulated in April 2022, and it was a matter of bringing it back to the MTO's attention and again highlighting the minimal changes to the site.
Okay.
Counselor Duck again?
I'm reading in the same report that Suzanne had permitted. It said the ECA permit requires if at any time dust, odor, vectors, pests, birds, litter, vibration, noise, or any other environmental effects are generated at the site and cause an adverse effect, the owner shall take immediate and appropriate remedial actions to alleviate the adverse effect, including suspension of all waste management activities and removal of waste from the site if necessary. If there is a complaint, who's the governing body on decides that would have to stop immediately or what actions are taken? And I know we have a 24/7 line, but how quickly is that going to be addressed? Obviously, that's not an emergency situation. But you know, if at 9 o'clock at night when a truck's pulling in, or sorry, 8:30 at night when a truck's pulling in the last load of the day, trying to get it off quick because they want to get home to their families as well. You know, smells brewing in the air. Who's taking those calls that the ECA permit is required, and how quickly are they going to be acted on?
So there's there's a sign at the front of the property which has the MECP spills response line, which I presume that they monitor 24/7 as well. So if there's any action on that site that needs immediate attention, that would go first to us and then also to the MECP, to that spills response line.
The second thing is the neighboring property owner should be notified of the dates and duration that mixing will occur. Who's responsible for doing that, and how much notice in advance would they be given?
Bartels would be presenting their notifying. And again, I don't think the ECA speaks to how soon we have to notify them, but again, our intent is to work with the neighboring communities, so we'll give plenty of those.
Okay, I don't want to flog a dead horse here. But is there any further questions? Yeah, Counselor Murray.
Susanna mentioned a deferral. What does that mean? For what reason?
That council wouldn't have enough information to make a decision tonight or wanted to provide Susanna with more time to review. Council could not make a decision tonight and move it on to, essentially at this point, it'd be the next council.
Anna, go ahead. While Susanna's coming up, I guess as Dan mentioned, I just kind of caution you on that. This council has all the information at the present time. And so deferring it puts it into a new council. So there would be a little bit of a learning curve there, I would think, for the new members, but it could happen. Susanna, go ahead.
Yeah, the question in my mind is what is the correct application? So and Mr. Ninehouse is, I have a lot of respect for Mr. Ninehouse. He really has done everything the municipality has asked for. And he has just reviewed, it has been a bumpy road. The correspondence that the planning department initially sent to Bartels said that an official plan amendment would be required. And then we had the pre-consultation. So the official plan amendment would be required in order to permit a non-agricultural use in an agricultural area. So the property is designated agricultural in the Perth County official plan. And the question is whether or not it's an agriculturally related use. That's the key planning question. We then received an application for an agriculturally related use. So there was first a piece of correspondence saying an OPA may be required. Then after the pre-consultation, there became the suggestion that there could be an ACM zone, so an agricultural related use. And that seemed reasonable, as I have reviewed on October 17th and again tonight. From the planning department's review, it seemed reasonable to consider that because the material is going to be, NASM material is going to be land applied as regulated by OMAFRA through a NASM plan, it seemed reasonable to consider that it was an agriculturally related use. The OMB or the OLT hearing that the neighbors have found considered a NASM site, and I haven't reviewed it in any detail, I was just looking at it briefly, considered a NASM site and denied it because it wasn't an agriculturally related use. So my concern is, so the planning department, you have a report recommending approval. So the planning department has reviewed the use and the concerns through the lens of, is it an agriculturally related use? And we are supportive of the file. The concern is that if council were to approve the ACM zone tonight and it were to be appealed, the test from the planning consideration is it reasonable to consider as an agriculturally related use? And the concern that I have since I wrote the planning report that's in your package tonight is that the section in the guidelines that the neighbors have been referring to, that I referred to in my presentation, is specific with regards to not permitting a biosolids storage facility as an agriculturally related use. So perhaps it would be and I appreciate that this is at an awkward time that you're straddling two councils, but it might be preferable for the applicant, if the file is going to end up being appealed, that the file is being considered as under a non-agricultural use in an agricultural area rather than an agriculturally related use. That is what I was thinking. And I did talk to the applicants about this at late on Thursday, and they did a huge amount of work Friday thinking that they might change the application. And then I advised them that, jeepers, I think it's proceed as it is, because from my perspective, whether or not it's an agriculturally related use or a non-agricultural use in an agricultural area, the impacts on the neighbors are the same, and they are considered through the ECA permit. So I apologize for the complexity of this file, and I apologize to the applicants for, how jumbled the process has been. And I also appreciate that it's difficult because it's straddling two councils. And I also appreciate how significant the neighbors care about Dublin. And those are my comments. I'm not sure if that's helpful.
Thank you. I just have one question, not knowing what's going to happen shortly, I'll say. We have the option, we can approve it, we can deny it, or we can defer it. If we deny it, and we end up going down the road, you as a planner, we're left basically trying to justify our decision, right?
That's right. Yeah. So if you were to deny it, we could anticipate that Bartels would appeal. Then it would go to the Ontario Land Tribunal. And then all of the planning merits that we discussed on the 17th and again tonight will be discussed by the Ontario Land Tribunal. And they'll come up with a decision as to whether or not, so that's my concern, is that when it gets to the Ontario Land Tribunal, there'll be a lengthy conversation about whether or not it is in fact an agriculturally related use. And based on the decision that I was just looking at briefly before council tonight, is that there was a similar file that was discussed. And the tribunal came to the decision that it was not an agriculturally related use. So that's my concern.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if that's your question. Your question
that
is,
was my
would you have a
question.
planner? Your planner, I'm your planner.
Yes.
And I'm supporting the ACM use with this caveat that perhaps it's not the correct application. So I would imagine that council would hire another planner.
Yep, but that was my question.
Yeah.
Oh, fine. Okay, good. All right. If there's no further questions, and I don't see any hands going up here, I'm going to break the recommendation into two parts, okay? The first part is basically accepting the report, and the second part is to do with the actual rezoning. So the first part, the recommendation is that West Perth Council receive the report dated November the 7th, 2022, entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment Number D14-1621, excuse me, submitted by Bartels Environmental Services, Inc. for west part of Lot 13, Concession 1, Hibbert Ward, Municipality of West Perth, 6903, line 34. So that's just accepting the report. It's not taking any action. Correct? Okay. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Vink, seconded by Councillor Murray. Discussion on that? Everybody knows what we're doing here. We broke it down in little pieces. Okay. All those in favor of accepting the report? Just put your hands up so I can see here. Eh? 1, 2, 4, 5. That's carried. Thank you. Okay. The second part is that West Perth Council approved the zoning bylaw amendment number D14-1621 for the west part of Lot 13, Concession 1, Hibbert Ward, Municipality of West Perth, 6903, line 34. So the motion is to approve it. So the options, as we just talked about just a minute or two earlier, you can approve it, you can deny it, or you can defer it. But the motion that's in front of you is to approve it. That's the motion. So with that in mind, do we have a mover and seconder for that motion? Councillor Matheson? You're moving? Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder? You're going to second it, Doug? Okay, so it's seconded by Deputy Mayor Ait. Further discussion? Nicholas?
When I considered this zoning bylaw amendment and can only consider it based on the planning issues and planning matters, and noting it's difficult to oppose a recommendation from our own planner, But my conclusion is that the ACM special zone is not an appropriate use for the storage of biosolids, and that the storage of non-agriculture source materials is also not an appropriate agriculture use. So I don't think we should approve this zoning bylaw amendment.
Okay. Any other comments? Anybody wishes to say anything? Counselor Tam?
I just can't see, for me, when I look at this, I think the best case scenario is status quo. I can't see any positives. I can't see any economic impact or any financial gain for the municipality. So I don't know why we'd take a chance.
Okay, thanks, Mike. I know, and I forget who it was, somebody at the public meeting made a comment about the municipality receiving revenue. We do receive some revenue. It's called taxes, but that's it. There's nothing else that we get out of this. I just wanted to make that clear because somebody made that comment. So. Okay. Anybody else want to comment? Okay, so I'm going to read them. Oh, Councillor Duck, sorry. Oh, sorry, Dean.
I was just gonna say to my fellow council members, when we're voting, we remember who voted for us, most of us anyway. We're here to represent the people. We have to take into effect what they're saying to us.
Councillor Jankowski?
Well, I was just going to comment briefly. This is kind of interesting that we're having this discussion tonight, and Saturday was the 24th anniversary of receiving my professional engineer's license. So how that's relevant to this?
Can we have point of order?
Oh, okay.
So you want to rephrase it?
I'll just go straight to the point that our duty as councillors is to uphold what we say in our strategic plan in terms of clean and safe communities and our responsibilities under the Safe Drinking Water Act. And as a resident commented to me prior to this meeting, we don't need a situation similar to what happened to the north of us some time ago. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dean. Anybody else? Last call. Okay, so it's been duly moved and seconded. I'll read the motion one last time, and then I'll ask for those in support and those opposed. That West Perth Council approve the zoning bylaw amendment number D14-1621 for the west part of Lot 13, Concession 1, Hibbert Ward, Municipality of West Perth, 6903, line 34. All those in favor of the motion? Okay, those opposed? The motion is lost. Okay. That's it. Okay. I don't know if council wants to take 2-minute break or a 3-minute break at the present time, 5-minute break. Jeff needs 5 minutes. I'm good for 2. We'll just take a short break and we'll come back. Thanks. Okay, Audrey, you can give me the thumbs up when we're good to go here. Okay, we're back and we're moving on. So the next report that I have here is our treasurer's report. So Wendy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor McKenzie and council. So I have 4 reports tonight.
That's okay. It'll be shorter than the previous item we dealt with.
I hope so. So my first report is the consolidated financial statements, which were for the end of September, which is 75% of the year. So we were showing approximately 24 million in revenue that has been collected, and we spent 23 million, leaving a positive result. And again, I just want to say the roads, we haven't quite distributed the wages yet. Had to make quite a few accounts. So those accounts have been made, and now we're doing job costing. So that should be in the October one. So if everybody was wondering, that is coming on the next one. If there's any questions on that one, I'll take.
Any questions for Wendy on that? Okay. So that's basically it for the consolidated statements. So we might as well deal them as we go along here. So the recommendation is here that Council of Municipality West Perth accept the West Perth consolidated statements as of September the 30th, 2022. We have a mover and seconder for that. Deputy Mayor Knight, Councillor Rose. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Okay. Next item then, Wendy.
So the next report is the streetlight review, and we're pretty excited to present this to you guys. And I'd like to introduce Brandon Telfer. He is our asset management technical analyst.
We call him the bean counter.
So he's just up here just for if there's any questions relating to technical information. But as far as the work that we have done, well, Brandon did a lot of, or most of it. He collected all the information. He actually went out and walked the streets and recorded all the streetlights and verified their wattage, their location, etc., in all the communities in West Perth. He also did analyzing the replacement value. He looked at the maintenance cost, and he prepared documentation for methodology going forward. So a couple quick facts in the report. Anna, do you mind clicking on the report? No, just the first one. Let me just scroll down. So just in this report, actually, you can stop right there. Oh, up a little bit. Just a little bit more. Just go down. Sorry. There. That'll be good. Just a couple quick facts. We have 786 streetlights. They used to be all pooled together, and now that we've separated them all out, so we know exactly what streetlight is where and the replacement values. And in the report, you'll notice there's different lights, and all those different lights have different replacement values. So we have pretty accurate information as to what streetlights are valued at. We also did all the GIS information that was plotted. And actually, Hannah, can you just go back? Just if you could keep it right there, that'd be great. Thanks. For the GIS data, we plotted all the small communities. So Mitchell and Dublin were done by Earth. And then we just went around all the small communities, plotted them, and we now have that data. So a couple things on the street lights. There are 2 ways that we calculate them. And on the screen, you can see there's property class and a flat fee. So the ones that are listed under a property class are based on assessment, and the ones that are on flat fee are basically calculated taking the cost requirement for that area and dividing it by the number of streetlights.
What do you do with it then, Wendy? So you have a, you know what the cost is, and you said you divide it by the streetlights, but then how does it get back to the individual homeowner?
So yeah, so on the flat fee is pretty easy. So if there's 12 lights in one, you just take what's required to raise to cover the cost and then divide it by the number of streetlights.
Or by the number of houses, right? Like you have,
Oh, sorry, I
I don't
see
know
what you
where
mean.
this happens, like, let's say, let's say Staffa, for example.
Yeah.
That's maybe a good one. So you've got X number of streetlights there. You know what the bill is. So you know what your expenses are.
Yeah.
So you say you divide it by the streetlights, but do you not divide it by the houses that are there?
Yes, and in our review, we definitely saw that we need some more work. And that's why in the report, we're recommending bringing back some scenarios and proposals. When we looked at some of the areas, it's not consistent in how it's been calculated. And it makes it hard as staff to defend some of those calculations. And so that's why we would like to bring a report back with possible scenarios to maybe clean up the process so it streamlines it and it's clearly defined the area that should be affected by the streetlight. So basically the area that's getting the benefit from it. Definitely saw in some of the smaller communities. It was tricky. So when we looked at it, there's a lot of, what was the word we used? Nitpicky. There's a lot of nitpicking that happens in that, and it's not clearly defined whether or not a house that's far away from a streetlight gets picked up or whether one in that area gets picked up. And so when we did the GIS, it was very apparent that it needs to be fixed. And so that's why we recommend a report to come back. West Perth has two, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Is that okay? Okay. We have two suppliers for hydro, being Hydro One and Earth. Earth looks after Dublin and Mitchell. And then some of the smaller communities are looked after by Hydro One. In 2015, there was a project to change all the high sodium streetlights into LED technology. And so we did see in our analysis that from the time from 2016 forward that we're seeing approximately a 30% savings because of that change. So that was good to see. When that project came into place, there was a 10-year loan that was taken out and it gets completed in 2024. It has a fixed interest rate of 2.63%. And then on the reserves, so essentially all the streetlight areas have a reserve account and whatever's kind of left over from the year gets put back into that reserve. And the purpose of the reserve is to fund the replacement of the streetlights. So Anna, can you switch it now to the report card?
And while she's doing that, if I may, Walter, ask a question. Part of the report, will that include how you're going to handle reserves for the streetlights and specifically allocating them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because we definitely recognized that the loan has been paid by the Mitchell streetlight account. So basically the reserve, and also all the maintenance is flowing through there. There was one other thing. Oh, all the amortization comes out of Mitchell as well. So this is our report card that we put together. And in there, it's showing both in condition and finance that we're showing a grade of A, which is good. The condition rating A is coming into play because everything is in basically the good and higher. So 96% would be the 751 streetlights, and those are part of the LED technology that was updated in them. And then the other 35 would be either new subdivisions or the new streetlights on Henry Street. And then for funding is getting an A as well because we have 383,000 in reserves. And it makes up a third of the replacement value, which is the replacement value for all the streetlights is 1.2 million. And we have roughly a third of it set aside in reserve. So it's showing that that is good. It did show that we do need to put away 49,000 each year into the reserve to continue that same projection. So at the end of its useful life, we'll have the funds to replace all the streetlights.
Okay, any questions on that, Nicholas?
And so is the street light category self-funded, like many of the, like if I compare it to the building department as an example, that street light should be self-funded or mandated to be self-funded or?
Yeah, it's right now it's area rated, meaning that what our requirement for it should be self-funded. And so based on our findings, it does look like that's projecting that way. Whether the distribution of the reserves are correct. So like I said, Mitchell has paid for the loan and has paid for the amortization.
Deputy Mayor, right?
Brandon, there's 7 streetlights on my street that you're saving money on because they're not on. Did you check them on Kenton and Clayton? And are you going to get them on? Thank you.
Also, we noticed that the handling of subdivisions is one way of when the new streetlights come on and who's paying that bill and when that changes. So we're actually talking with Earth on Wednesday to make sure that we have that all set in place so that as we onboard all this new growth, it's streamlined.
Okay, any other questions? Right, I have a recommendation here then, that the council municipality of West Perth direct the treasurer to bring a report identifying options to distribute the streetlight area rates during the 2023 budget discussions. Moved by Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor Harold. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you, Wendy. So next one is general fees and charges.
So this is an annual report that comes, and it's just basically our fees and charges that we bill for services. So there was a few changes, and it was all reviewed by department managers, and the fees suggested are based on inflation or other measures. If there's any questions, I'll take them.
Questions, Councillor Trinkowski?
Thank you, thank you, your worship. Just one question, Wendy, on the patio. The charges for patios on the sidewalks is $800. I'm just questioning whether that number could be lowered to make it more attractive to the business owners to entertain such an idea for their businesses. Just $800 just seems, I'm not quite sure what we would need to charge $800 for. It seems like a fairly simple process or submission process, so.
We can certainly look into it.
I can try to assist. I think there may be an error in that number, and I think it's a good catch. We can have a look at it. We've been waiving the fees for the last couple of years during COVID, but I don't recall it being that high before. So there may have been just an error when it got transcribed. We can perhaps approve the bylaw with that fee under review, or I'll ask the clerk for some advice about whether a technical correction to that number could be made.
Right now, this is just a report for information. We'll deal with the bylaw further on. So I'll provide some technical response to them or a suggested amendment as I look back through the bylaws to clarify if it's an error or not. But I've heard council over here discuss it. Through COVID, we've never charged it, and it's been a waived fee.
Okay, if there's no further questions on that one, we have a recommendation that West Perth accept the general fees and charges bylaw report as information. We have a movement seconder for that. Councillor Rose, Councillor Duck, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Right, and the development charges annual adjustment.
So similar to the report that was brought to you back in June, the development charges we're definitely seeing an increase in our cost for construction. And in our paragraph, in our bylaw under paragraph 75, and it states that the development charges may be adjusted annually without amendment to the bylaw as of January 1st of each year, using the second quarter of the prescribed index in the act. And so when we pulled the number, 17%. So that's our
Okay.
recommendation, to go by the prescribed rate.
Okay, any questions on that? Nicholas, go ahead.
I was wondering if anybody took us up on the offer before we raised them the last time to lock in the old charges, one person only.
I believe we just have the one that we have old charges locked in. There's a lot of moving pieces with development charges. There are significant changes to development charges coming as a result of announcements a number of months ago, and then the announcements from a couple of weeks ago. And we're gonna have to, this one deals with with our current bylaw and our I think, not our ability, I think our need to index to the construction index, or else we're gonna end up having levy pay for development, and this is supposed to be a development pays for development concept. So I don't think it's much of an issue for this one. But going forward, we're gonna have significant changes to development charges when we update our bylaw.
And if I could just add, there was a change in the legislation that DCs are now locked in or frozen. So the time it used to be when they did their building permit process is when the DC would trigger. But in order to kind of encourage development, it's frozen at the time of approval. And then you have up to 2 years to kind of act on that application. So that helps answer your question if it gets deferred or held.
So what you're saying is, if I have the application in before January 1st of 2023, I will be able to lock in the current development charges. I don't even have to have the building permit.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Any other questions? Okay, the recommendation is that we approve a 17% increase to development charges rate in accordance with bylaw 63, 2019, section 75, and that the approved rates come into effect January the 1st, 2023. Mover and seconder for that. Councillor Duck, seconded by Councillor Matheson. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Okay, thanks, Wendy. And down now to CAO, and the first one is electronic monitoring policy. It's like wearing an ankle bracelet, is it, Jeff?
Thank you. We could use a little levity tonight. Thank you. He asked me if it's like that ankle bracelet I'm wearing. It was something like that.
Something
wasn't it?
like
Yeah,
that,
there is.
yes.
So thank you very much, Council. The report was provided to you, and it's a legislative requirement. Many municipalities are just getting around to this now because there were a number of these legislative requirements that required some work and some reliance on other municipalities to take a turn at doing some research and sharing the results. So we've arrived at it tonight. It's a fairly straightforward report. I believe it's a good policy for staff to disclose what we monitor and why, who, what, why, when we monitor. And so this report meets our legislative obligations, and I recommend that council approve it.
Okay, so the recommendation is that West Perth approve the employee policy and procedures manual policy 315 electronic monitoring as required by Bill 88, the Working for Workers Act 2022, and that council directs the policy to be circulated as mandated by Bill 88. Mover and seconder for that, Councillor Murray and Councillor Harold. Questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. And the next one is Omer's non-full-time expansion.
Thank you, Mayor McKenzie. Another report that was circulated with the council package, a fairly straightforward report. The OMERS policy change was a change that was made by the provider of our benefits package. The change is not mandatory, the change is mandatory in terms of municipalities having to offer OMERS to all non-full-time employees. As the report articulates, we didn't do speculative gymnastics to try to model a bunch of possibilities. It's very complex. The decision that a non-full-time employee might make about whether or not they take OMERS is very personal and has a lot to do with what they might see as their future career and different kinds of things, their age and a number of factors. So we've identified that we have to make the change to our policies and provide the offer to take OMERS. That's mandatory. It's not an option. As we move into budget in 2023, we will have more specific numbers, which will come out in our salary plan, and we'll be able to show those. And I would just, I think the probably best piece of information I give you is we would anticipate that there will be a different impact on different departments because some departments have more non-full-time employees than others. So for example, the recreation facilities, parks and trails department uses a lot of student labor, and those choices that are made by those students will be something we can't predict.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. So the recommendation here is that we receive the OMERS non-full-time expansion report for information. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Rose, Councillor Bell, questions? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. And smoking in the workplace.
Thank you. The smoking in the workplace policies, we have a policy in our health and safety manual, and it's one of these policies that we regularly go searching for, and it should be both in our health and safety manual and in our employee policy and procedures manual. We have updated this policy to reflect our current approach and our current procedures around everything, the references to legislation and to our disciplinary policies, and properly cross-referenced it. So I would I'm recommending that council approve this change to this policy. We haven't opened up the employee health and safety manual at this point in time. We haven't been making amendments to those policies. It hasn't required the kind of amendments that this policy, that our employee policy and procedures manual has. So I believe that it's better to just update it here rather than open up and start making changes to the health and safety policy that aren't necessary. So that's why I'm recommending we add this policy to the personnel policy.
Okay, the motion is that we approve the employee policy and procedures manual policy III-16, smoking in the workplace. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Rose, Councillor Duck, any questions? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. And next item then is correspondence from Darlene O'Donnell, the Poppy Chair for the Legion. And I just want to take a minute here to resolve who's going to do what here. So I will do the West Perth Reef. You want to do the county? Or to do the county? Yeah, okay. So we need a volunteer for Mitchell. Mike? No? Murray, you could do that? Okay. Doesn't matter. Murray can do that. Logan? Dean? Oh yeah, you've already said you would do it. No, that's all right. Fullerton. Okay. And the Hibbert one. Yes, I think there is an Earth one as well. So can you do that? Okay, so everybody knows what they're doing? Did you get them all? Sherry's gonna do the Herbert one? There
Not-
was.
Not in our letter.
No.
But you've got a separate letter.
But there is an Earth one, I'm pretty sure, isn't there, Nicholas? Yeah, okay, so that's all looked after. I believe they leave at 10:30, so be there,
10:25.
10:25, yeah, 10:20, whatever. Okay, so the other one, is, I need somebody to represent me at the high school because they do a Remembrance Day service there as well, and there will be a wreath there on behalf of West Perth. So I'm looking for a volunteer that would go to the high school and do that for me.
What day and time for that?
Same day, same time. Yes.
You're out.
Anybody? I can't be two places at once, and that's why I'm back. Anna Marie, could you go to the high school? I knew you'd do that for me. Good, thank you. They will,
10:30, 10:40 start time.
somewhere in there.
10:30 to 10:40.
Yeah, and they will, they'll escort you in and, the wreath or the wreath will be to the one side and there'll be a student come and get you and then they'll give you the wreath and you just send it up at the front. But they have a bit of a service, a bit of a program. It's actually kind of an interesting program. Okay, Trish McNaughton has information here about a BIA Christmas street party request. Sherry, do you want to elaborate on that at all?
Mike.
Mike?
Mouth, I don't need a mic. It's just our annual Christmas party, but this year we have hired some attractions and games, I guess. We have a blow up hockey staff, not our staff. We've actually hired a company to come in, and if you could point that out to your friends and neighbors, it's blow up hockey for the kids outside and a bunch of other activities that we'd like to put on the two ends of St. Andrew Street. So just a request for closure.
Okay, so the recommendation is that West Perth approve the request from the Mitchell BIA for a Christmas street party on November the 25th, 2022. You want to move that, Sharon? Do we have a seconder? Ryan? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. And I think that's got it for correspondence. So we do have a motion that we accept correspondence as information. Moved by Councillor Harold, seconded by Councillor Rose. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Council reports. I don't think we have any at a fire board meeting, but I'll bring those minutes when I get them updated minutes to me. So we have a number of bylaws here. Okay, sure, go ahead.
So Councillor Trentowski was corrected as a typo. It should just be $800. So if we're going to make a recommendation today, I would just give first, second, and third and final reading to that bylaw as amended.
As amended. Okay, so that is
800. Well, I thought it said 8. Sorry, 800 is set out by bylaw 52/2013, which is a sidewalk and patio cafe.
Well, I was going to suggest when Wendy was making her presentation that we amend that to a different number, something that would be more in line with what the businesses could undertake. So I would suggest, make a suggestion of 400 would be my starting suggestion, but I'm willing to entertain what the rest of council might think about that idea.
Can we come back? Is there an urgency on this one? Can we come back with the bylaw?
I think if counselor wants to make an amendment to it, we can make an amendment to it now. If it's the in charges bylaw, and then we'll commit to bringing forward that 2013 bylaw for review.
And I kind of think that 2013 bylaw maybe got amended later to a lower number. So if we put a number in, and let's put a number in that's a reasonable number, and we can bring a review back, and if we have it right, we do, there's a chance we'll get it right. And if we don't, we'll amend it before next patio season.
Sherry?
I think the number $250 comes to mind. And then in our past discussions on waiving it through COVID, I do believe that was the number that it had been amended since 2013.
So is that the number you want to put in? 250?
Yep, that's,
Okay, so we'll put that in and, so that's under the fees and charges bylaw, as amended. Okay, so, bylaw 67 is one we just talked about. That's the, fees and charges. Signing officers is, 68. Do you want to explain that one, Dan? The signing officers? We're adding, obviously adding somebody.
We're just clarifying who has signing authority for financial matters as well as who has signing authority for administrative matters or who can bind the corporation. So that would be 68 and 69. It's a common bylaw that we don't have.
Okay.
We don't have it set in bylaw anywhere.
Okay, all right. And then the zoning bylaw, 270 is amended for Van Pelt. And the next one is, okay, so the next one we just delete, don't we? We don't even take it. It's gone.
Council would just not grant it first reading or any reading. So we would be doing 67 as amended up to Z 270.
Yep, okay. So we need a mover and seconder for first, second, and third reading for bylaw 67 as amended, bylaw 68, 69, and zoning bylaw 270. We have a mover and seconder for all three readings on that. Councillor Bell and seconder. So I'll jump at once. Councillor Rose. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Written to the last page. Okay, announcements. Anything at all? I don't. Nicholas?
Well, I was wondering about in my calendar, and it could be just a mistake in my calendar, that there was a council meeting on the 21st of November, because it was the third Monday of the month, but it could be my mistake in my calendar.
There is one.
It'd be the 21st. This is noting the 27th is incorrect.
Okay, so tomorrow, November the 8th, is the joint county orientation. I don't know if you want a carpool or if everybody just wants to go on their own. Like, we could meet at the parking lot back here and carpool if you so wished. Whatever your desire is. I don't know, how many are going? Is everybody going or Dean's going? Nicholas?
Everybody but two, and
Okay.
maybe council could work that out.
Yeah, we can.
Following the
talk about-
meeting.
Yep. So Remembrance Day is on the 11th. November the 15th is the new council term. The 16th is an open house for business and agriculture sector. And then the swearing in is that same night, just a little later on. And 27th is the inaugural council meeting. 21st, sorry, yes, we just talked about that.
And then there is another council meeting on the 28th. So there'll be not on the 27th, but another one on the 28th.
That's a special, yeah.
All right. Okay, any notices of motion? Any other business? Did I miss one? Oh. So that was, oh, yes. Yes, okay. Counselor Matheson.
Yeah, I had that, this is concerning Bill 23, More Homes Build Faster Act. There's a lot of changes that are coming towards the Development Charges Act and the Planning Act and the Conservation Authority Act. And I just think that we should probably have a little bit more information provided to the new council on what is going to be facing them and what they have to decisions. If there's more information could be come up from staff on how that's going to affect.
Yeah, I think when we can get a presentation from the conservation authorities, perhaps with the new council to go over it. Certainly as staff, we haven't had a chance to evaluate what the impacts are. There's been a few things going on, but I know conservation authorities are talking about it and we'll want to hear from them.
Just to follow up to that, I have some information come out from the Maitland Valley that I can forward to you.
Okay, so we'll just leave that one hold for now. Till we get some more information.
Is council requesting, if council wants to request or direct staff, I think, I don't think any direction is needed at this time. It would definitely be part of an onboarding process for new council, and we have presentations, not only potentially by Watson's in the works, but we also have them by BM Ross, our engineering team, and our in-house treasury department just went through a presentation, and they might be including just what they've learned and providing that to council as well.
Okay, so again, we don't do anything with it. It was in our consent agenda and we pulled it.
We can accept it as information if we want to do nothing, or if council wants to provide direction for staff to come back with a report or something like that, we can.
Go ahead.
Me as an outgoing counselor, I'm not sure how you want me to handle that, but I think if I was still on, I would definitely want the information, if all the information is possible in front of the council on how this is going to affect, because it's going to affect us in multiple ways. It's not just conservation, it's going to affect our planning and our development charges and how we go forward from there. So I guess as long as it's made aware and kept up as information and not just in a consent agenda and filed.
No, why don't we direction to staff to bring further information to the new council when we can. That would solve that. So, okay. Yeah, we could do a motion, I guess. You want to move that, Cheryl? That we direct staff to.
Yeah, I can move that.
Okay. So it was moved by Cheryl and it was seconded by Mike Tam, that direction to staff to bring further information back to the new council. All right, we do have a closed session, so a motion that we go into a closed session at 9:20 for the purpose of addressing matters related to the following litigation or potential litigation or potential litigation for construction, labor relations, or employee negotiations, proposed or pending land acquisition. So do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Rose, Deputy Mayor Ait, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Good. Okay, we've just come out of closed session. And council had a discussion on the litigation or potential litigation, labor relations or employee negotiations and proposed or pending land acquisition. The CAO was provided with direction on various matters, and the following resolutions are being considered and open to the public session. And the first one is that the Council Municipality of West Perth direct staff to prepare a draft policy for council remuneration utilizing a larger honorarium with per diems available for rare circumstances. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Rose, seconded by Councillor Vink. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. The
So maybe we should just say that the larger honorarium doesn't mean getting paid more. It just means getting paid the same amount, but easier admin work done that we're not going to be submitting timesheets because of it, but we're planning on getting paid the same amount as we did in previous years. Does that make sense? That larger honorarium doesn't mean getting paid more?
yeah, if you say so.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, we're not changing the amount that's paid. That would be a very big decision. We're changing the way the honorarium balance with per diems is set.
The end result at the end of the year should be very similar to what it was before. It's just that we're not going to keep track of all the meetings. The next one is that the Council Municipality of West Perth approved the revision of the annual CPI calculation to be based on the Bank of Canada average CPI rate for July 1st to June 30th of the previous year and taken to 2 decimal points to align with the Perth County method. I think I could read these ones all as one. That the Council Municipality of West Perth approve COLA for 2023 as 5.54%, consistent with Perth County, and that the Council Municipality of West Perth adopt the 2023 staff and CAO pay bands with the 5.54% adjustment effective pay period 1 of 2023, and that the Council Municipality of West Perth direct the CAO to amend applicable policies to reflect the new COLA calculation method as being the method used by Perth County. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Vink, seconded by Councillor Murray. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. And then finally, that the Council Municipality of West Perth approve a COLA adjustment to the West Perth Fire Department pay system for the mutual aid meeting rate, the monthly standby for firefighters and captains, and the annual honorarium for station chief and deputy station chief. Moved by Councillor Vink, seconded by Councillor Tam. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Okay. The next item then is, well, just I guess before we get to the confirmatory bylaw, we're getting near the end of the meeting, so I do want to express our appreciation to a number of council members that are not coming back. So we've got Anna Marie and Mike and Doug and Cheryl and Sherry. So we certainly appreciate your involvement over the last term or two. Some have been on longer than others, and certainly Mike says that tonight has been the worst. Is it did you say the worst meeting in 4 years? But it's been the most difficult meeting that we've had in 4 years. So it was a bit of a toughie, certainly. And I hope you appreciate it. I gave them all the time they needed to get their points across. So normally we have like, what is it, 15 minutes, but kind of threw that one out. So anyways, I'm not sure. We can go around the table, the ones that are leaving, if they want to say a few words, that's fine. I'll just open it up. Anna Marie, you want to go first?
Sorry. It's been a privilege serving these 3 terms for West Perth, and just chatting with Nicholas a minute ago about the major projects that have been accomplished in these years. And it feels good to know that that's done because we were so looking forward to so many of these getting started. And here we are, and they're finished. It's wonderful. So you probably have other projects that you're going to be working towards, and I wish you all the best doing that.
Thank you, Anna Marie. Good. Mike?
Yeah, kind of along the same lines as what Anna Marie said. I never thought that I'd be 4 terms, but the first term I thought, oh, that was 4 years. We didn't get much done. And then, well, it'll happen the next 4 years. And then here we are, it's 16. So, but now we've got a lot done, especially in this last term. I appreciated working with all the fellow council and staff, and it's been good.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Doug?
It's been challenging for the last 8 years especially, and unfortunately, I think it's going to get more challenging because more people want. But I did have fun in my 12 years, and I don't know where we're going to go from here, but I'll be sitting out there the odd night or watching on my TV in my recliner because I really like watching from my recliner. It's easy to sit there and second guess, so that'll be my entertainment on Monday nights.
Cheryl?
Yeah, I just like to say too, I enjoyed working these past 8 years with everybody here. And like Anna Marie said, we have accomplished a lot and there is some projects on the go right now that would have been nice to have been still around to see that finished, but we'll see the end product in the short future. And all the best to everybody. Like Doug said, it is going to become very challenging with the increase in the population here and the demands that they might want more services for. So all the best to everybody, and we'll be sitting watching too.
Sherry?
I don't really have much to add. Everybody spoke so eloquently, but I will challenge this new term of council to stay progressive and not slide backwards. Keep moving forward in with, the short term that I have been on, but to keep moving forward and be progressive and let's not go backwards.
Thank you. And we do have a parting gift, but you're going to have to wait. It hasn't arrived yet. Is that the best way to say it, Dan? Yeah. So we will let you know when it is here, and you can pick it up at the office here or whatever. So, yeah. So yeah, the nameplates they can have. Yep, you can take them. So anyways, yeah, I'm not sure how long. Would be likely within a couple of weeks we'll have that ready, won't we? Yeah, just isn't here now. So we'll email you out or call you or whatever. You can pick them up at the office here. So we have a couple motions left to do here. The second last one is a bylaw 70, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of Corporation Municipality of West Perth be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed the 7th day of November. I'm looking over here at Anna Marie. I'm sure she wants to move it. And I think Mike Tam is going to second it. All those in favor? Okay. And then a motion to adjourn at what have we got here? 10:19. Okay, moved by Deputy Mayor Height and seconded by Councillor Matheson. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Good.